time to rethink, renew, and reimagine retirement. Welcome to Retire Repurposed. This podcast is dedicated to help people transition into fulfilling and purposeful retirements. Retirement is a big life change. In fact, the two most dangerous years of a person's life are the year they were born and the year they retire. We believe that retirement is not the end, rather the beginning of what could be the most impactful season of a person's life. So don't retire, become repurposed. Well, I'm your host, Jared Sebeste. I'm the co-founder of Retire Repurposed alongside Ben Tejas. Thank you so much for joining us today. Maybe you're listening to us on the radio. Maybe you found us online. Regardless, head over to iTunes, find our podcast, subscribe, and better yet, leave us a quick positive rating and review. If you would just take a moment and do that, we would appreciate that so much. Now, this podcast is all about retirement, but it's not about money. It's about the non-financial parts of retirement, which many times can be even more challenging than the financial. Few people can just flip the switch from working a career 30, 40 plus years and then shutting it off on Retirement Friday without methodical steps to living what we call a repurposed retirement. If you want more for your life and your retirement, then you have come to the right place. Well, on this episode, we start a brand new series on retirement habits. Healthy habits are important at any time in your life, but especially in retirement. Time is one of your greatest assets if you are a retiree, but if you have bad habits, that time is going to work against you. Today, we covered the habit of practicing gratitude. Gratitude acts like a linchpin and a gateway to joy and faith. In this podcast, Ben shares not only why gratitude is so important, but he explains practical ways you can be living a life of gratitude today. Enjoy this episode. Hi, folks. Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we get started, just a reminder, we've got a Facebook group called Becoming Repurposed in Retirement. We're asking you to join a growing community of people that refuse to accept the typical American dream retirement. Look for more tips on living repurposed, Facebook Lives, Q&A sessions, special content, on and on. Go to facebook.com and search Becoming Repurposed in Retirement. Click join to be a part of this community of people ready to make their retirement everything it was supposed to be. Ben Tejas joins me on the show, and Ben, we've got links to the 4 animal personality test on the Facebook page. We've got more information there posted. If you want to go back and do the test and find out what 4 animal personality type you are, the Facebook page is the place to do it. Before we get started with today's show and kind of this new series we're kicking off here, Ben, let's talk about that for just a second. That was a fun series. Learned a lot, learned about each other, and I think very valuable for folks listening at home.
Yeah, and I think it started, remember we had that show where we were talking about, walking into the fullness, walking into your own fullness, how God created you to be. I mean, it's really hard to do that without realizing, what personality traits do you have? What natural things were you created to do? How do you look at life? And then the other part of that is not only walking into your own fullness, but helping those around you find out and walk into their fullness as well.
Yeah, knowing thyself is a huge part of life. It's a huge part of faith. And retirement, what a great time to do that. I mean, you've got a lot of data. By the time you retire, you've got a lot of years under your belt, some more than others. But to look back and really identify how God uniquely created you, look back at some of the life experiences you've had, and I think you'll start to connect the dots. And if you've never done a personality test, this one is super easy. It's the 4 animal personality type. That's why we chose this particular test, because it's pretty simple, pretty straightforward, but pretty revealing as well. So again, go to the Facebook page. I've got links on there where you can take the test, and then better yet, once you find out which animal you are you a lion, a beaver, an otter, or a golden retriever, then email me at jared@retirerepurpose.com and put in the subject line what animal type you are, because what I'll do is I'll send you all of our information. We've got the last, I think, 4 or 5 podcasts, Ben, that we covered this in depth, but we only scratched the surface with all of the research we did. So if you want all of it, go take the test and then email me and make sure that you join the Facebook group as well. So today, Ben, we're starting a brand new series on retirement habits. And this is going to be a series probably 5, 6, 7 shows deep. We're kind of sketching it out right now, but this is going to be a fairly lengthy series that we're doing. And I'm excited to do this because this is kind of in the road that we're in right now. You and I, Ben, read a lot of self-help books, and it's fun. I mean, I'm a nonfiction reader, and so this is kind of in check with some of the things that we think about, read about. But habits is one of these things that is so important, and we feel just, what a great time to start establishing great habits is in retirement.
Yeah, habits at any age, super important, right? We know that. I read a book recently, and I think I shared it with you, and you read it, by James Clear, named Atomic Habits. Really super interesting on how I didn't even realize some of the things that I do that have become habits over time. And interesting to see how they have shaped my own identity, how I do things. Like, I start to do this because I did that, which actually all started from this back here. So I look at habits being important for people really at any age, right? I think we get into this stage of life later in life, and I think what can happen, certainly for retirees specifically, is you got more time, right? And more time is not always a good thing if you're not using it properly. So I think habits, huge for retirees.
Yeah, and you touched on it, and James Clear talked about this in his book Atomic Habits, that the things that we do are habits, on that regular rhythm that shapes who we are. And it's kind of like it's not real intuitive, but it is true. If I have a habit of acting like a healthy person, my habit is I get up and I start the day with activity, and I go to the gym, and I have habits that reflect being healthy, I will take on the identity of a healthy person. And so it's not just about goal setting and trying to achieve a goal. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about really something deeper than that is deeply connected into our emotional health, our mental health, and our identity as well. So this is a huge deal for a retiree.
Yeah, I think James said in that book somewhere, I'm going to misquote it now, but something along the lines of that habits are the compound interest of self-improvement, right? If you look at really the way to get improved over time is making incremental change, not all at once. You don't have to do it all at once, but making small changes over time, much like we look in the financial world of compound interest. Right. I mean, you can make huge changes in your life by just simply making minor incremental changes along the way with how you do things, what your habits are.
You said good habits are good for everybody at any time, but this is a really bad time. Retirement will be a really bad time to slip into some really bad habits.
Yeah, I think you look at how our lives look as far as time that we spend with people, our kids, etc. I mean, time can start looking like a real problem if you're not controlling what you're doing with your time. I think it can be your absolute greatest asset. It can be the most amazing thing. But if you have bad habits, it can actually start to look like a real bad thing.
Yeah, exactly. Now you've taken work out of the equation. You've got a lot of time on your hands. If used improperly, it can really send you down the wrong path really, really quickly. So again, for a retiree, using your time wisely and developing good habits is so important. That's why we wanted to do a series on this as well. The other piece of this puzzle is that your physical health really is kind of working against you. And we've talked about this and or at least touched on it in shows prior. At the end of the day, like once you hit like our age, man, like your 40s, there's this natural decline. Are there things we can do to slow that process down? Yes, but at the end of the day, if you're over 40, there's probably things that you can do today that you won't be able to do maybe in a year, 5 years, or certainly 10 years down the road. So you've got kind of time not on your side in some aspects, but also your physical body is naturally declining. So that's working against you as well. So again, you're kind of fighting uphill here.
Yeah, and to add to that, I think and still do believe that really the aging process and really from a physical and mental standpoint is accelerated dramatically by the act of retirement far more than getting older.
Right.
So let me say it again. It's not necessarily just that you're getting older and that you are seeing these changes in your life, your health and your body, but also your mind. But it's more to do with the massive change that retirement brings to a person. So I just was visiting with one of our clients who had this exact same thing happen to him. He's like, it feels like since I've retired, I've actually aged much faster than I was prior to that. And
Right.
I know that is something I have seen over and over again. It doesn't mean you shouldn't retire,
Right.
but it just means you shouldn't retire and do nothing. So all of the things we're going to be talking about, the different habits we're going to be sharing with people, extremely important, not only because you're aging, but also just because that is a major life change of retirement.
Yeah, it can be a perfect storm. In your book, Ben, Repurpose, you mentioned a gentleman right at the beginning. It's kind of the key feature story where this gentleman retired. Admittedly, you admit in the book before he should have, and he was not prepared for for everything that we're talking about, the emotional side, the purpose side, even the physical side. He had a physical job. He retired, and things went south pretty fast. So again, this idea of retirement is good, but if not used properly, it can be really bad.
Yeah, not used properly, and not they don't have help being coached through
Right.
how big of a life change it is. And that's something different we do now, is saying, hey, be mindful of these changes and start to develop, if you haven't already, great habits. Realize that your job allowed you to get away without having some of those habits. I mean,
Right.
really, a habit is something you do over and over again, right? And you've kind of gotten used to doing. Well, getting up at a certain time of day, if your job has made you do that, right, created guardrails as to how you eat, how you go about your day, the exercise you get, those all are basically habits that need to be replaced once you do retire.
So this is why we are doing this series. And again, we've just kind of spent the last couple of minutes talking about why we are going to spend the next several shows talking about habits. So today, we're going to get more specific about the habit of gratitude. And this was kind of a no-brainer, Ben, when we were going to start this mini-series. Where should we start? This idea of gratitude is a big one. So let's get started by discussing kind of the 30,000-foot view, again, the overview of why this specific habit of gratitude is so important.
Well, I'd start with just saying, as a whole, we started talking about this particular habit. I mentioned to you, I said, I've met a lot of grumpy old people. And this sounds really, I'm like, this is a show we talk to retirees. If you're out there and you kind of like cringed, I'm sorry. But I too struggle with being a grumpy person at times. And I'm only in my mid-40s, right? And one thing that I've thought about as I've kind of prepared for this show and just in life, I kind of have this ability to really, and you know this, Jared, you're smiling at me now because I'm like, yeah, that if I'm just kind of, if I'm not careful, even my face can start to look naturally grumpy, right? And I've always thought, how do I replace that? I cannot have a grumpy face that I try not to be grumpy.
Right.
I have to have a face that I try to make happy.
Right.
Okay. And it may sound simple, but really that gratitude is the same thing. If I'm a person that generally struggles with being not happy or I'm down, I can't just try not to be that way.
Right.
I have to do the exact opposite, right?
Yeah.
So if I struggle with being content, with being happy, with being filled with joy, I can't just try to, not struggle with that.
Yep.
I have to actually do the opposite. For me, is showing gratitude,
Yep.
is seeing things that I'm grateful for within my current life. So, I go back to the Bible, right? I mean, gratitude is a catalyst for joy. If you want to have gratitude, you have to be a person, or if you want to have joy, you have to be a person that practices gratitude.
Right.
So there's so many verses in the Bible that talk about that, but I mean, Psalm 136 verse 1, give thanks to the Lord for he is good, his love endures forever. I mean, can you get more clarity than that? I mean, just simply just giving thanks. If you want to have a more positive aspect on life, again, you have to not just try to be not negative.
Right.
You have to turn it and be positive.
Yeah, I think the doing part of getting joy is the gratitude. I think that's the point you're trying to make. And also, too, age can be a kind of a megaphone or a multiplier of kind of who you are. Your character will start to come out more and more with age if you don't kind of correct the behavior. For example, my mother-in-law has worked years in a nursing home, and she has seen a lot of people age over time. And she says there's definitely two different categories of people in nursing homes. There are the people who are kind of like what you said. They've had a tough life. They're down. They're maybe depressed. They're maybe struggle with depression. Their overall viewpoint on life is very negative, and it's written all over their body. Even how they look and carry themselves. And then this other group is The older they get, the sweeter they get, the more soft they get, the more gentle they become, and we can all think of that little old lady, maybe our grandma or somebody in a nursing home, and they're just the sweetest little thing. Not more times than not. Almost every single time, the people that are in that last category are the ones who have the heart of gratitude. They're thankful for the day. They're thankful for the meal they got. And the people who are on the other side don't have that. There's no doubt that there is something to this idea of gratitude, and it separates pretty quickly from people that have it versus people that don't have it.
Yeah, and you can see it on them, right? I mean, you can see it on their face and how they interact with others, and how they feel inside many times is changed just because they have stopped and said, you know what? Yeah, I don't have it ideal. Some things have happened to me. I had a client of mine just a couple days ago, and we started talking about this. We're coming into Thanksgiving now, and I said, you guys are a lot of fun to meet with. And let me tell you why. We went through, they're always so positive. And they shared then with me a bunch of things that they're grateful for. And this is a guy that battled cancer a few years ago. His wife's had some health concerns. Not everything's been perfect. Right. They don't have a perfect life, but they choose gratitude. And I think that's really, really important.
Yeah, I just wrote that down actually in my notes as we were gonna go through this. But the choice, the people that are joyful have chosen to have gratitude. It's not that they've had this cush, easy life, and the people that don't have it have had all these bad things. Usually, well, not usually, many times the people that are the most joyful in gratitude have gone through the fires and whatnot. So that is certainly part of the equation as well.
Yeah, I mean, look at James 1:2-3. Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produce perseverance. So the Bible's specifically calling out hard times, how it builds faith, how it can build some gratitude in your life when you see those things that you've walked through, when you've come through the hard things. It's not that everything is perfect and everything will be perfect. You will continue to see hard times, but how you choose to look at them. And I know our wives listen to these shows, I was told recently.
Right.
I know mine does, and she's going to be, hey, remember your show? I get that. And I am a person that struggles with that because I have been blessed. Just in so many different ways. And when I don't stop and realize that and say, even in the hard times, God's working on me. There's something coming. I need to be grateful for all of it.
Gratitude is a theme all over in the Bible. I mean, we could spend days on podcasts just talking about that. If you don't believe me, go to Psalms, read Proverbs. There's just countless examples. Daniel giving thanks even though he was persecuted. Jonah, when he was swallowed up in the belly of the whale, worshipped and gave thanks. And of course, kind of the ultimate example, of course, is Jesus going before the cross and the night before Last Supper, giving thanks and even being thankful, knowing what was coming. It wasn't easy, certainly. And I think that that's a really good model as to kind of how we can view trials. We should be thankful because a lot of the things that we go through, even the tough things, we have to look at them with the right perspective. I'm not happy I've got the trial, but I have this peace and joy knowing that there's a reason for it, and at the very least, it's going to build my faith. So I think that that's an important point as well.
Yeah, being full of gratitude and even to some extent celebrating the hard times. Really tough to do because we want to say why. We want to say, give us the answer now. We don't know, right, when you're walking through it. And I know for those of you that are listening and you're going through a hard time today, you're like, I don't like the holidays because you're coming up to Thanksgiving. I'm supposed to be thankful. Right. And I've got a major life event going on. And we don't know what that is. And if you're listening to us today, you may have something that, is so far beyond anything you've ever faced before. But these guys on the radio are telling me to be thankful, right? And to be and to even celebrate that. I do challenge you to ask God and just say, hey, show me how I can have gratitude in my heart for what I'm going through.
Yeah, asking the question why is a horrible question to ask. It's what. And I find myself catching myself when I'm in that season of asking why. Why is this happening? That's a horrible question, but what are you trying to show me? What are you trying to reveal to me, even about myself and my faith walk? That's a much better question to ask. We've got about 5 minutes left here. I do want to spend some time, Ben, and give folks listening at home just some really tactical takeaways, some things that they can do. So how can retirees practice gratitude?
Well, I think right away, realizing that it's extremely powerful to begin and end each day with some type of gratitude. What I would encourage you to do is start a journal. I would love it if you're just coming into retirement and you've never journaled before. Take that time and really note in a journal like the things that you're doing. One of the most important things for retirees is having a calendar of events. I hate it when people say, "Oh yeah, it's another Saturday, right? It's just all the days blend together." No, you should have a calendar of events. You should know, not just know what day it is, but begin each day intentionally with journaling. Like, hey, here's what I'm attempting to do today. I want to make it a great day. God, you've given me this day. I'm thankful for it. Some positives, right? And begin it that way in journaling and in prayer. And then end it the same way. Say, God, this has been a great day. There's been challenges. Here's a couple of positives, and then end it with, hey, the things I didn't get done today, the things that I kind of put off, or the things that I didn't do that I want to do better. Right. Hey, guess what? I have an opportunity to do it better the next day. So right before you go to bed, too, you're feeling this place of gratitude and able to kind of then wake up the next day with that in your mind.
I heard on a podcast here, and I should have researched this a little bit more, but I did hear somebody say the most powerful hour of your day is the hour before you go to bed, because that's when, and unfortunately we fill it with our phones, like 96% of our TV. Yeah, so like we're filling the last hour before bed with screens, and it's the most, I don't know if this is the right word, it's the most fertile time for kind of your spirit to absorb and, kind of communicate and be in touch, right? And so I've heard if you spend that last hour in prayer, journaling, reading something positive, it actually kind of connects with your subconscious, and you're able to kind of connect with it more. And I'm butchering the verbiage here, but there's something very powerful about that, and it'll affect how we wake up the next day. Think about this. You have an awful fight with your spouse or something like that. You go to bed. You usually don't wake up feeling very good, but if you can end it on a positive note with gratitude, it's going to kind of rewire how you think for the next day.
Yeah, too many people watch the daily news, the nightly news, and fall asleep to that. Don't do that. It's crap. Turn it off. I think you have to realize that what you're putting in to your mind is what's going to come out. So when you can be refreshed at night and again, journal and end a day with gratitude, very, very, very powerful.
We got about 1 minute left. What's another thing people can do?
Well, spread gratitude, right? Like we were talking about earlier in the show, there are folks that you can just tell there's something different about them. We've got enough division in the world right now. Be the light, be an encourager. Send a handwritten note to somebody that could use it. Don't just send them an email. Don't just send them a text, but write something out. That's a super powerful thing to spread gratitude to those around you.
I think another thing, Ben, that people can think about is to really identify kind of what triggers them to not be grateful, to be kind of grumpy. Is there something specific that kind of sets you off? I think that's an important thing too for people to understand, is to understand what are the things that kind of get me off track, and then almost dig like a little bit deeper. Why does that thing cause me to, get grumpy and want to, kick the can down the road and kind of dwell in self-pity? I think I've done that a lot lately the past couple of years, is really not just identifying it, but really kind of go back. What is the ultimate thing? Because there might be something deeper in there that God wants to kind of set you free from, to have a heart of joy and gratitude.
Yeah, for sure. I think as we go into these next few shows, we're talking about habits. Start off with this habit of gratitude. Start off by every day, in the morning and evening, thanking God for something He's done in your life. Look at the positives of life, and you'll be shocked just how more positive you feel each and every day.
Well, I sure hope you enjoyed this conversation as we begin this new series on retirement habits and living a life of gratitude. Remember, rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you. Thank you once again for joining us today. If you'd like a copy of Ben's book, Repurpose, The Untold Story of Retirement in America, just visit our website, retirerepurposed.com. Until next time, I'm Jared Sebesta. Remember, don't retire, become repurposed. We'll see you then.
Securities offered through Avantax Investment Services. Member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Avantax Advisory Services. Insurance services offered through an Avantax affiliated insurance agency.